Hey guys, we are moving on to chapter 8, which is all about photosynthesis. So, photosynthesis, we're going to be converting solar energy or sunlight into chemical energy. And we're going to be making carbohydrates, which are going to be glucose. Organisms that are going to perform photosynthesis are called autotrophs. They automatically are going to be creating their own food. Most of us think of things like plants, but there's also other organisms out that are autotrophs, such as algae and cyanobacteria. The opposite of autotrophs are heterotrophs. And heterotrophs are organisms that are going to eat other organisms. Other heterotrophs are even autotrophs. So we as humans, we are heterotrophs because we do not make our own food. We have to eat our food. Autotrophs and heterotrophs use organic molecules produced by photosynthesis. So we use glucose. In photosynthesis, we are going to need pigments, and these pigments are going to be capturing the solar energy. So sunlight is going to come, attach to these pigments, and then that energy is going to be able to get changed into a usable form. And the main pigment that we're going to be dealing with is chlorophyll. You'll note that throughout this PowerPoint, there's two kinds of chlorophyll, chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, and they just differ in the wavelength that they're going to absorb and reflect. We'll talk more about that later. But another common pigment is carotenoids. Okay, so the whole job of the pigment is going to be capturing solar energy. Photosynthesis occurs in green parts of plants, mainly the leaves. So if you have a question on the test that says, where in a plant does photosynthesis take place? Your answer is going to be the leaf. And specifically within the leaf, we have this layer called the mesophyll layer. And that's where cells that have chloroplasts are going to be located. Raw materials means what goes in. Carbon dioxide and water are going to go into photosynthesis. That's why we say the raw materials. So these are the reactants, what goes in. Water is taken up by roots and traveled to leaves by veins, specifically called xylem. Okay, so water goes in through the roots, travels up against gravity through the xylem to the leaves, where it's used for photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide enters through these tiny little openings called stomata. So stomatas, it's just this basically circle where that opens and closes and lets carbon dioxide in. And like we said earlier, light energy is absorbed by chlorophyll, which is a pigment, and the thylakoid, which is part of the chloroplast. So let's talk about the structure of the chloroplast. So the chloroplast structure is kind of similar to the mitochondria structure in the fact that it's going to have several different membranes, several different layers, and then it also has a jelly-like fluid-filled section. So the chloroplast and its fluid-filled interior is called the stroma. Remember, the mitochondrial fluid-filled part was called the matrix. Within the chloroplast, you're going to have thylakoids. Okay, thylakoids, they just look like little stacks, little round sacks, basically. And when you have several thylakoids stacked together, you're going to get a grana, also called granum. Just know that one's plural, one's singular. And then you're going to get a thylakoid space, which connects the thylakoids together. So right here we have our leaf of our plant, okay? We have our stomata opening and closing, so it lets carbon dioxide in and it lets oxygen out. So the stomata open and closes. It has what's called guard cells that open, let carbon dioxide in and oxygen out. Here we have the leaf vein. So this is where water is going to go in. Okay, going to come up through the roots. We have the mesophyll layer, And that, as you can see, has all the cells with chloroplast in them. So this is the leaf section. It's in these cells where photosynthesis is actually going to be taking place. Right here we have a picture of a chloroplast. So it has the stroma, different from stomata. I know they sound the same, but stroma and stomata are two different things. Don't get those confused. And then we have these little things are called thylakoids. Okay, so here's one thylakoid. Thylakoid membrane surrounds it, and in the middle of the thylakoid, you have what's called the thylakoid space. A stack of thylakoids is called a granum. Okay, so as you can see, the chloroplast itself has an inner membrane and an outer membrane, and then you also have the thylakoid membrane. That's why we say that there are three different layers. Our overall equation, carbon dioxide, water in the presence of sunlight with pigments leads to glucose and oxygen. I like to remember this by Cal and OG. So Cal, CO, carbon dioxide, W, water, O, oxygen, G, glucose. So the whole purpose, the main purpose of photosynthesis is going to be to create carbohydrates. Oxygen is just a byproduct, okay? We get carbohydrates by changing carbon dioxide. Notice that glucose is C6H12O6. So we get the carbon from carbon dioxide and are going to convert it to the carbon that's in glucose. And then oxygen comes off of water. We're going to split water to get oxygen. So that's just a really quick overview of photosynthesis.